Hey guys, Lighten here, and ever since I was a little kid, I loved the idea of going on an adventure, fighting bad guys, solving puzzles, and just collecting a cool treasure at the end. I think it was due to movies and games like Super Metroid or The Legend of Zelda, Indiana Jones, and The Goonies, which has a bunch of kids solving a mystery. That sense of discovery and mystery was something that I always loved, so when Disney partnered up with the crazy Nicolas Cage to bring a modern sort of treasure hunt, I was all over that. I had to see it. So today I'm going to see if National Treasure is worth it. As I said in the intro, there are many other movies and games that have the treasure hunter aspect, but a lot of them are based on ancient treasures or artifacts. Not many have a modern treasure to be found, but this movie does just that. Ben Gates is a treasure hunter and history buff that has been looking for a secret that lies with Charlotte. A long time ago in colonial America, a very special document was about to be signed, the Declaration of Independence. Charles Carroll was one of the people that signed it, but he was also a member of the Freemasons, who were reformed from the Knights Templar. The Freemasons had been collecting a lot of treasure and historical artifacts over the years, and during the massive civil war where, America fought Britain, they decided to hide it all just in case it fell into British hands. They then set up a very long and crazy series of clues that would lead someone to the treasure. As everyone that knew about this secret had been killed or died of, natural causes, only Carroll remained when he imparted the first clue to Ben's great-grandfather. The secret lies with Charlotte. This one sentence sent his whole family on a series of treasure hunts where they went to the ends of the earth to find out what Charlotte was and where the massive treasure would be. The family had become a little infamous as well with trying to find this treasure, wasting most of their lives and money to do that. Then Ben Gates comes along and he just figures it out. Charlotte was a boat that was lost in Antarctica on an expedition. The only problem though is that this boat didn't contain a long lost treasure at all. No, it only had a strange pipe and another clue. This is just the beginning of the journey, but Ben gets double-crossed by his teammate Ian Howe. Damn you, Sean Bean. But there is one major problem. One of the clues is on the back of the Declaration of Independence, one of the most guarded documents in the world, and for some reason they wouldn't want Ben to just play around with it, so he'll have to steal it. This treasure hunt mixes a whole bunch of history, both real and made up, where it is now a race against time to figure out the clues, stay one step ahead of the bad guys, and find a long-lost treasure. A national treasure. This is the second movie that I'm talking about that stars the infamous and amazing Nicolas Cage, but this is not one of his movies where he does his signature freak out or crazy scene or anything like that. He just is pretty normal throughout the film. That isn't a bad thing at all. He plays a great part of the history buff where he's trying to get the Freemasons' treasure before Ian Howe can, and all these facts that he has in his head is just crazy. Like, he knows everything about everything that happened in all of America forever. It's really, really crazy. And then you see him put the two and two together in order to solve these clues, and you're like, how did he get there? Even though it's very unbelievable, you can't just help but watch him. He has just this energy and this presence about him throughout the entire film, this excitement whenever he has a new clue to solve. The other main characters are Riley, played by Justin Bartha, who is the tech and mostly the comic relief of the group. He doesn't know anything about history, so he serves as our way into the movie, where Nicolas Cage and the other characters have to explain to him, and thus us, what each clue is and how it relates back to history. Diane Kruger works in the Library of Congress, and she is also a history buff, nearly on par with that of Ben. So whenever they get together, they have this big series of, oh, this is a history fact, oh yeah, but did you know this is a history fact, and they bounce off each other fairly well throughout the film. Ben being a man and Abigail being a woman, of course she is the love interest of this film, and it's a little phoned in at times. They get really along with the history side of things, but most other things they don't really get along, and you just can tell that it's gonna end up with them kissing at the end, and it's like, Hollywood romances, so boring. Even though that might be a bit of a cliche, the fact that she doesn't even want to be part of the trip and she just gets dragged along because of the Declaration, and that she can hold her own against Ben, the main character, is a welcome relief because it gives her something to do. It's not just a pretty damsel in distress that gets the kiss at the end of the film. The other main character in this film is Ian Howe, played by Sean Bean, who has a name that should rhyme but doesn't. Anyways, he plays the bad guy. Of course, he plays a lot of bad guys in this film where he is the pretty much opposite of Ben. He is not into history very much. He doesn't know anything about the clues or anything. He just sort of muscles his way throughout the whole film. It's good to see the contrast between him and Ben as well, because where Ben is like thinking about all the puzzles and trying to solve it in a logical way, Ian just pays other people to solve it and then he just sort of muscles his way through everything else. Like, it's pretty funny to see the two different sides of solving a treasure and finding a treasure clash. Also, spoilers, this is one of the few films that Sean Bean just doesn't die in. I know, crazy, right? He dies every time, except this time. The story for this movie is the major draw for me. I love a good treasure hunt movie, especially when they use real life history in the process. The way that everything links back to historical people and places is so much fun and very creative. The fact that a few of the clues are hidden on the back of the Declaration of Independence is also a very fun idea. In order to hide a treasure map that you want to last the test of time, it only makes sense to put it on the back of a piece of paper that will stand the test of time. I do find it a little far-fetched that over the years no one has figured out that there was a map on the back, but yeah, plot convenience. Not only that, but later in the movie when they find a special pair of glasses, they then go and look at the back of the Declaration only to find that there are more clues on the back. I have no idea how these glasses work either, and it's most certainly a stretch of the imagination, where I can believe that a secret hidden map was on the back in a type of invisible heat ink. I can't believe that a pseudoscience 3D weird looking map thing was also on the back. The other thing that I find hard to believe is that the clues still hold up today and no one stumbled across any of them, but at the same time I understand that it's, part of the story, so I can let it slide for plot convenience. There's a lot of action in this movie as well, even though it's based on history, and it's mostly alright. You got quite a few chase scenes, and the stealing of the Declaration of Independence is actually really creative. It isn't plausible at all, but it is really fun. Plus, it's good to see the, like I said before, how Ian and Ben go out things at a very different way, where Ben figures out how to steal the Declaration, where to get it, how to sneak his way in, and then Ian, gets his thugs and they break through a door and they use, the fire torch to melt through things and stuff. So they go the muscle route and he goes the very smart route. But both work. So it doesn't tell you one way or the other which is better or worse. It's just that, there's different ways to do different things. My only problem is that there's quite a few chase scenes throughout the film where they're just running away from the bad guys because the bad guys are always on their tail, for some reason or another. And there's a few of them. There's after they steal the Declaration, then there's a car chase later on, there's also a foot chase later on as well, and it's just... I just wish there was a bit more variety in the action scenes, but they're not bad to watch. There's just, like I said, less variety. The end of this film is one of great excitement where they figure out where the treasure is. It's in an underground part of a cathedral in a very old and elaborately built structure. Now, this is something that I can never quite believe about these types of movies. How did people of long ago build things like that without advanced machines and stuff? It just baffles me. But then there are even more elaborate traps and secret passages that you have to solve, like some kind of puzzle in order to open them. How did these people design these? And why would they? This is so elaborate. How did they also last this long and still work? You're telling me that these ropes that are 200 years old are still good and that this contraption still works? That is just... what? It's something that I find really, really awesome, but incredibly stupid, and it always makes me question these types of movies. But anyway, they get down to the bottom of this action-heavy scene, only to trick Ian into thinking that there is another clue down there while they escape through the treasure room, which is also very impressive because it's beautiful and it's got so much cool stuff in there. And of course, it's worth a fortune. One thing about this movie that is a bit of a hit and miss for a lot of people is the fact that it's all based on American history. I'm Australian, so I don't know a whole bunch of American history, so I know a few of the key things, I know what the Declaration of Independence was, but I had no idea who Mr. Carroll was, signing the thing. I still don't know who he is to this day. Well, that's a little bit of a lie. I have watched a lot of movies and played a lot of games that are based around this time period, and so I have learnt, quite a bit of American history. I played Assassin's Creed 3, and even though it's a bastardization of the history of America, it still did teach me quite a few things about colonial times. But even though I don't know everything about American history, I don't think a lot of Americans know a lot of the stuff either. I'm sure they know the major stuff about, the Declaration. They probably know a little bit more than I do. But Ben Gates does a lot of obscure references in the movie. So does Abigail as well, like when they're bouncing off each other and they're just talking about history. It's pretty hard to follow some of it, but you can't help but get invested because they're just so excited when they are talking about it, when they are solving the clues. So yeah, it's still fun, even if it's trying to teach you certain things that aren't really true. It isn't all perfect though. The movie is pretty far-fetched in terms of plot, that nearly nothing is fully believable, as there are huge leaps of logic, especially when it comes to the clues. Whilst I quite like the story, there is a lot of exposition when it comes to solving these clues, which can make the movie slow down quite a bit. Also, I have passions about many different things, but I don't have perfect memory for it, but this movie has that in spades. Ben has this eidetic memory for all of history and just about every aspect of it, from the Civil War until today, which includes all the landmarks around the country, the people, and the events, and even the streets themselves. It baffles me that he knows all of this and can even make the connections in his head. You see his thought process, but hot damn, does it make no sense to me. Even the conclusions he comes to make you go, huh? How did he even get there? He only forgets like one fact in the entire film, but when prompted by Riley, he soon remembers and continues to spout exposition again. The other thing is that there's this huge underground chamber in the movie, and how did that not get discovered in the 200 years since that got built? I know for a fact that there are underground subways and that there are tunnels and sewers and everything that got built underneath the city, so why did none of them bump into this? And you can't even use the argument like, oh, maybe the Freemasons were protecting it by, you know, changing the plans or some shiz like that, because nope, the Freemasons don't even know where this treasure is anymore, because the last person that knew about it died before he could tell anybody where it was. Ugh. National Treasure is, in my opinion, worth it. Even with all of the exposition and all of the leaps of logic, it is just so much fun to watch. You can't help but get caught up in the mystery of the whole thing and how they're going about solving it. The fact that the clues are written on the back of the Declaration of Independence and the Liberty Bell and all that kind of, you know, major historical landmarks just makes you think about history again and makes you think, maybe this could be true. Like, maybe these people did leave clues everywhere and it's just up to you to try and solve them. While this film isn't perfect with its bastardization of history, which would definitely make some people just roll around in their graves going, wow, I can't believe you tried to pass that off as history, it is still an exciting film. Maybe it's only because I like an elaborate treasure hunt, because the story itself is fairly predictable. You can see everything that's going to happen from start to finish, except of course where the clues lead. If you could figure that out, damn, you're really good at history. The characters are 2D, you have like the comic relief, you have the smart main character, you have the, you know, the love interest, you have the bad guy, but it's still a lot of fun. That's the only word I can use to describe this movie very well. It's just a bit of fun, like bastardization of history, a lot of cool chase scenes, and it's just fun. So check it out. So tell me what you thought about National Treasure. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you learn history through it? Because I learned a little bit of history through National Treasure, so it's probably wrong history, but hey, it's now up there in the memory banks. And what did you think of it? Like, did you find it as fun as I did, or did you find it a crappy film? Like, just let me know, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye! As this is in the script, Kitty is the best! Diane Kruger plays Abigail, who works in the library. Sorry, my dog is walking around making tick 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 sounds. National Treasure is, in my opinion, which side am I gonna go to? Treasure that is national. Oh, Jesus.